to call the roll, please?
Sorry, I'm always muted when you need me to talk. Deborah Carter?
Here.
Kim Sella? Here. James Cotter?
Here.
Ed James?
Here.
Linda Camp?
Here.
Raisha Rollins? Ben Samuels? Jordan Sanders?
Here.
Here.
Sorry,
Yep.
here.
James Neely?
Here.
Patrick Kelvey?
McKelvey present.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we do have a quorum. Okay, all others in attendance, would you identify yourself and department? Office of the St. Louis County Executive?
I do know he is not able to attend.
Okay, thank you. St. Louis County Council? Okay. St. Louis Department of Transportation and Public Works?
Ray Golick.
Adam Spector. Oh, and Joe Colessa.
And I see Stephanie's logging on also.
Stephanie, okay. Okay. All right. Who was the other? I got Ray, Adam, Stephanie, and
Joe Colessa.
oh, Joe. Okay, thank you. Okay. St. Louis County Police Department
Brett Ellen here.
and St. Louis County Counselor. I think I saw Miss Britt on the line. Portia, Britt? I thought I saw her. Okay. Okay,
She
cool.
was on, so
Okay.
we're good to go.
By State Development,
Yeah, I'll start. I'm Chuck Stewart, Chief Operating Officer, Metro Transit.
I'm
Yeah,
Tom Curran.
Tom.
Tom Curran, Executive Vice President of Administration.
okay.
Missy,
Missy Webb, Director of Security, Media, and Customer Engagement. I'm here for Mr. Scott.
Okay.
I think that might be it for us.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else in attendance?
This is Robin Wallen, and I'm with the Commission on Disabilities, also a member of SMART, and the Transportation Committee Chair for the Missouri Council of the Blind.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. We have a motion to approve the minutes for the September 9th, 2024, and the October 14th, 2024 meetings. The minutes. for those meetings.
I make a motion.
Who made the motion?
I think I did.
Okay,
James Cotter.
James, okay. Second by,
Kim?
okay.
Mr. Chair,
Been moved in second. All those in favor?
Mr. Chair, this is Deborah.
Yes, Deborah.
I'm going to abstain from the October minutes because I was not present.
Okay. Make note of that. Okay. All those in favor, can I say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? None. And it's noted that Deborah abstained from the October 14th minutes. Okay, reports. No one is here from the county executive office.
So I was going to, regarding the North County Community Connector Study, I was going to give that presentation. I have a slide deck that I presented to agency leadership last month, so I can do that now or later.
So we want to just wait until we get down to that portion. Okay? No one from the county council? Okay, now from the Department of Transportation and Public Works. Okay, Stephanie?
So if I'm able to share my screen, I'll go through the presentation that I recently gave, as I said, to agency leadership, and then I will turn it over to Joe Colesso, who will speak to some of the higher level budget issues or questions, I guess, that you had raised. So let
Okay.
me see if I can. Okay. Bear with me 1 second. So can you see that? Can you see my presentation?
Again.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, what we had told agency leadership, so with Metro, we met with Talby and the mayor and county executive Page and East West Gateway and MoDOT. We had started an analysis of transit options in North County in 2022. And the impetus of our information was a lot of the information that had been collected already by either Metro or East West Gateway. And of course, that was a springboard for the city to, go forward with the Green Line. Our study area is what's bounded in the gold. So to the north is Highway 270, and then you see the red line on the left side of the orange area or gold area, and then the city of St. Louis is in the bottom right corner. So is this advancing on your side? Because it's not advancing. Okay, there. So we had similar goals probably as to the city of St. Louis. We wanted to bring transportation investment into North St. Louis County. And we wanted to provide transit options to people in North St. Louis County. And this was, and the focus on North County over other places in St. Louis County was because of the demographics, the disadvantaged areas, the percentage of people living below poverty, the percentage of minority residents, the people, the number of people that were living without a car and dependent on transit already. So this ended up to be a phase study, but it didn't start that way. This was just going to be a singular alternatives analysis. And we were focused at the time on light rail transit options, not because we had to by, vote of the people or anything like that, as was the case in the city of St. Louis, but just because we were looking to try to springboard off of what the city was already doing. We had to, in our analysis, look at the physical constraints of the corridors that we were studying and determine cost and ridership and all of those pieces of data that go into figuring out if you can reasonably get into and be successful in the FTA's transit pipeline. So we had looked at these 4 routes you see on the screen, the Brown Line, which essentially took you from Natural Bridge. So at the bottom right of the screen was the Green Line, or is the Green Line. And so from that point along Natural Bridge up using Florissant Road, our goal was to try to get people to the North County Transit Station. We had the Green Line, again off Natural Bridge, following Lucas and Hunt and Halls Ferry. We had the Purple Line from Natural Bridge, using some of Goodfellow and then West Florissant. And then we had the Pink Line, which was Natural Bridge, Jennings Station to Hulls Ferry. And so we looked at the same thing that anybody probably looks at to determine if you have a successful concept for transit. We looked at equity and demographic factors. We looked at ridership. We looked at cost. We looked at alignments. We got public feedback. We looked at what we could or couldn't lift on the design side. And basically we had problems. We had routes, predominantly these routes are state routes. West Florissant, for example, is ours, but a lot of the other routes we were using were not St. Louis County routes. We had significant grade issues. We had constraints due to bridge crossings. We had narrow right-of-way. We had setback issues with buildings along the right-of-way. We had limited walkability in some cases to the station. So this was about 2023. In the fall of 23, we said, okay, we've got to look at doing things differently and try to turn over every stone we can to see if there's anything viable. And so that led us to think about trying to use permeations of the routes that we identified. We even were considering different modes other than light rail transit. And so that got us into what became phase 2. And we needed to try to bring transit option to North County, and we were willing to consider anything. So that meant looking at different modes. As I said, focusing less on light rail transit and more on potentially bus rapid transit, just to see what was out there, because we knew that we didn't have anything yet viable for light rail transit. Obviously, there can always be more bus added, and maybe there should be in order to, make wait times less. But we knew that people weren't necessarily as responsive to bus as they wanted to be responsive to light rail transit and other things that had the projection in face of more transformation. So we also wanted to be focused on what routes we could see as much in-street running as we could, which is not necessarily a problem with light rail transit. The way it's approached these days, that was going to be in-street running. But for bus rapid transit, we also wanted a specific corridor for bus rapid transit. And we wanted to make sure that the corridor could accommodate that and have less opportunity for it to go into mixed traffic. So we were looking at that. We wanted to start looking at what options we had off the red line and not the green line, because one of the biggest constraints we found was that there was no champion for the connection between Green Line and the St. Louis County area. So no one had identified themselves as picking up the Natural Bridge alignment. So we knew that we couldn't be dependent on the Natural Bridge alignment. And so we wanted to see if it was possible if we could jump off the red line. And then, of course, as I said, we wanted to see if there was something else besides Natural Bridge that might have offered opportunity. So when we were looking at what other light rail transit options there were, we only developed 2 other concepts because the geography of North County is such that there wasn't a lot of great opportunity not to come in contact or conflict with grades and a limited right-of-way. So then when we were looking at BRT, we developed 10 bus rapid transit alternatives, but 5 took us into the city as well. And the city at this point was focused on light rail transit and the Green Line. So we really just came away focusing on what ended up to be 1 additional light rail transit line and then 5 bus rapid transit lines. And so the ones that were county only were what we numerically said were bus rapid transit lines 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And you can see on this slide that we were predominantly running them along West Florissant and Hulls Ferry. So these are just slides that basically highlight the fact that obviously you get more ridership with light rail transit, but you spend a whole lot more. So we are in the neighborhood of about $2 billion in project cost. That would be offset probably about 50%. you know, if we were to qualify for new starts, but then 60% of that is within the city. So we'd need a partner to bring that 60%. The bus rapid transit lines, especially when you look at 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, are not as expensive, relatively speaking, but they also don't generate the same type of ridership. So then we were trying to ascertain if we qualified for new starts or small starts. Those are two different funding programs that allow us to advance transit. And the difference really between the two, well, one difference is one requires that there be fixed guideway and one doesn't have that requirement. And then how much funding you get and how big your project can be varies between the two programs as well. So this slide generally shows you that for the light rail transit option that we have LRT2, so the last remaining viable transit option that we have, qualifies for new starts. It's 100% fixed guideway, but again, it has a very large price tag. Not that that's insurmountable in the world of the FTA program. If you can get a viable project to go through the program, that's not necessarily insurmountable. So, you know, that wasn't necessarily something that was stopping us. The BRT 1, 2, and 3 qualified, but they were in the city. So remember, we need obviously a partnership with another jurisdiction that also wants to elevate bus rapid transit. 4, 5, 6, and 7 didn't qualify for anything, so those fell out. And then BRT 8, 9, and 10, you know, qualified in a manner of speaking for one or the other programs, but we really wanted to try to maximize exclusive corridor, and so we were really down to BRT 9. So the problem that we had, and the problem that we still have, is that none of the routes that we looked at, not before and not now, qualify yet for FTA under the FTA program, because you need a medium score in 4 categories, and we're only able to, under current guidelines, you see in green, we only have a medium in 2 categories for the LRT2, and then we don't even achieve a medium for BRT 1, 2, and 3. And then for 8, 9, and 10, we only have a medium in 1 category. So we did, even under current guidance, get an up to medium, which is not medium, but it did say that perhaps if we change probably some fundamental things about our alignment to get the cost down or ridership up or something like that, we possibly could reach a medium score. So we knew that there was proposed guidance on the horizon that might even be passed at the end of this year. But applying that, we still don't have the scoring that we need to feel comfortable at all to go into the FTA pipeline at this time. So this just kind of reiterates the fact that of the 1 LRT line, you can see it jumping off the green line, where you see the little green bubbles down at the bottom right corner, connecting then to what is purple. That would be our line, does not follow Natural Bridge all the way. It takes Natural Bridge and then turns northwardly, follows Halls Ferry up to the North County Transit Center. To achieve this, we have to first have the new guidance, and then we have to make some critical changes to the alignment in order to, or different things, different aspects, you know, assure there's more economic development, or that we can produce some environmental benefit or something that will raise more criteria up to a medium category. I know that Toby had said a week or so ago that ridership was up, so obviously ridership recovery is paramount to making transit in general successful, and ours as well. And then in order to have a conversation with the city, who would be picking up 60% of this, because all of this area, I don't know if you could see my cursor, but everything from the end of the green line up to the county boundary would be in the city. We would need them to be in construction of the green line, either into or done with the construction, because our line would be dependent on the final construction of the green line. So where we're at is we're pausing. We believe that transit is, transit option anyway is necessary in St. Louis County. It would be wonderful if it was light rail transit. It'd be wonderful if it was just more transit opportunity. We know that we have to, probably logic's sake, if nothing else, but it's great for unity and connectivity for our customer that we build off lines that are already there. And the green line is in progress. We didn't have great opportunity to jump off the red line, and we haven't yet found an alternative that we feel can make its way comfortably through the FTA process. So we are pausing until we're at a point that, yes, the new scoring criteria is adopted, but that the city, and it'll probably be, I would say 2-3 years from now, where they are at a point where they're starting construction and probably feel comfortable to talk about lifting another transit line from the city into St. Louis County. So what we're doing at this point is we are going to, especially if the St. Louis County Council passes the budget that we propose and approves the 5-year plan going forward, that we will emphasize infrastructure improvements that are germane to transit. So we know that sidewalk facilities, road facilities, and things like that need to be upgraded. As you saw on one of the earlier slides, there's one of the alignments that we proposed that didn't have good walkability at all. And obviously from your home to the bus stop, from your home to a transit stop, you are either on foot, on bike, or in car. That's just how it is. So we want to focus while we can in this interim on additional infrastructure improvements, and then continue to work with East West Gateway to leverage any grant opportunity. We will engage the city as soon as the leadership wants to engage together on what additional transit looks like. And at this point, you know, any additional information that we can provide Metro in case they're able to lift something, we will do that. We think that this is, you know, as far as we can take it at this moment. But we are committed to continue to talk about it as things start to shake out and we can move the process forward. So that is, I'm going to stop sharing. So that is the presentation on the North St. Louis County Community Connector.
Is there any questions at this time? I have one. It's more of a, what is the main difference between bus and then bus rapid transit?
So bus rapid transit would have a different looking vehicle, and we were trying to do our best to make sure that it had an exclusive corridor and not be like a regular bus where it would just be in travel lanes, but it would be more like light rail transit with a specific corridor. It had the option, or would have the option, because it's on wheels, to meander around as it needed to do. But in order to make it different and elevated, we were committed to trying to make it an exclusive corridor.
I remember years ago they did the Holdeman streetcar route. This is something similar to that in terms of a route where it was just basically no other traffic other than the bus route.
Well, just like light rail transit, this would run in the same alignment as bus rapid transit as we envisioned it would run in the street, just like the cars are doing today, but in a specific alignment. We contemplated for a short time the streetcar, but the streetcar and other things like that didn't bubble up to be a viable alternative. So
No, when I mentioned the Holdeman streetcar route, they changed that from a streetcar route to a bus route, but it was just exclusive for bus traffic.
yeah, I don't, you know, I would have to work with Metro on you know, how buses would interact with a rapid transit vehicle. I think they would probably do a similar, wherever light rail is going to go, and they can say, I can't speak for them. Maybe bus isn't going to be on those light rail lines, but if it is, then it would be similar for bus rapid transit too, I would imagine.
Anyone else with questions?
I just have one question, which is how many buses would be required for this rapid transit system as opposed to a light rail system? I'm just kind of understanding how that works.
I don't have that information. Joe Kluss, I don't know if that was maybe talked about in a meeting that I wasn't present for. I don't have that detail.
Okay. And as I understand, this is kind of like an express bus system, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah, because we would
Yeah.
put the features in so that there would be signal preemption and different things like that. So it would try to function less like a bus and more likely like light rail, but obviously they're not, it's still on wheels and not on a track.
Okay.
So I can speak a little bit to the number of vehicles. It would depend on ultimately the headway that was decided upon. And the shorter the headway, the more likely people are to use it, but the more buses you need to keep that more frequent service. Ultimately, it would come down to ridership and the decisions, in part by Metro, as to what they wanted to operate and what they would see as a successful headway for that vehicle, for the number of vehicles. So it depends. Those were decisions that would have to have been made if we had gotten to a point where we could have found a way to a successful application. I suspect that ultimately, when we can change some of the metrics that are going to help it score better, that's going to help drive the number of buses to provide the ridership necessary to justify the program to the federal government.
And if I may, I just have one more question. As I understand it, I call them express buses, but I forget the terminology you use. Would they, let's say, for example, they get to a red light, would they have some access? I wasn't sure. If you say access to go, that would change the light for them from red to green?
So not exactly, but so right now we are working on a plan to deploy what we call Operation Smart Street, which is going to provide for bus priority at all signals throughout the county. What that means is that it won't change the light like a fire truck. But the system will know a bus is coming, and if holding the green for an extra 15 seconds would help to make that bus get through faster, then the signal will dynamically change the timing so that the bus would still make it through. So that's something that's rolling out regardless of this program. That's something we have in our work plan. I'll be covering a little bit more here in a minute.
Thank you.
So Stephanie, you indicated that the investment in transit is on a pause right now. What would change that status to move forward with further investment in public transit in St. Louis County?
So the first thing is, even though we've projected based on the information that we know how we'd score under the new criteria, the adoption of the new criteria is one of the pieces to actually have it formally adopted. And then we need to be at a point that we can talk with the mayor because the light rail transit line that we identified is a majority of it is in the city. And so we need to be at a point that we can talk with the city about how they may be able to fund that. And if they have the capacity to do that. So those are two of the, I guess, major points.
But this is it, James, but in looking at the green line and the purple line extension, there would be basically coming right off the green line. What about UMSL and what about the airport passengers going further north? Right now, they have no, even if the purple line came in, it would not serve the airport or UMSL students, would it?
So are you talking about light rail transit or are you talking
Either
about
l-
bus rapid transit?
Either light rail or rapid bus line.
So we were trying to make sure, which is we're not able to do as well with the one light rail transit line that was left that scored the best, and because of the engineering factors would allow it to move on a reasonable cadence to get people where they needed to go. Because there's time constraints on moving people by light rail transit. So that would be a situation where somebody that's on that line and they're up at the North County Transit Station might have to jump over to a bus to get down to the red line area, UMSL area, or they would, folks would probably just have to take the current blue line to the red line or something like that if they were in the city. We really desperately wanted to try to get connection to UMSL, and as I said, even looked at alignments that jumped off the red line where UMSL was kind of that anchor, because we knew that was probably an area that a certain percentage were wanting to get to.
Right.
But we just, the grades in the area, the street, grades were just, it's pretty difficult to work with them and get the train moving at the speed that it needs to stay on its cadence.
Yeah, train or bus.
Train or
Any
bus, it's easier to move if it's a bus versus a train, but it's still, yeah, you still have other factors. If you want in-street running, an exclusive corridor, you need the right of way. And one of the things that we were very focused on is in order, I mean, with enough money, you can probably build anything, but if you're flattening a road or widening a road, you're taking away the people that are probably more apt to use the transit, because then you're talking about taking that property to widen the road. And so that didn't seem to be a path that we wanted to discuss at this point. That was pretty invasive.
Stephanie, I just had one more question.
Yeah.
I know the county's going through this long-range plan, 2050 plan, and I know from my participation, I've seen that there are a lot of residents who are interested in investment in public transit and improving access in St. Louis County. So I'm wondering, at what point, if the residents are asking for investment, how that impacts your decisions to move forward with any investment in further transit in the county.
I'm glad you brought up the 2050 comprehensive plan, because one of the areas that we think that we can get a better score is by creating the instruments that are needed to support transit-oriented development. And what we know is there's probably some communities up in the North County area that don't have a deep enough bench to have staff presently on their personnel roles to do a land use and economic analysis. And so with our 2050 plan, not only are we going to work for ourselves to promulgate more transit-oriented development, but work with the communities. It's a goal of Jacob Trimble and myself to be present however I need to work with the communities so they might feel comfortable to adopt our comprehensive plan or use it as a base to modify their own, so they can also have the right tools in place. So as development happens, it can be against that framework, that backdrop of transit-oriented development. And it's things like that, working with the communities and working through the comprehensive plan, that we think that we can show and demonstrate to the FTA that we are trying to do everything we can to change the economic situation and score better in that area. That'll be one more way that we can feel comfortable that we've hit enough medium marks that we could be successful taking a project through the FTA pipeline.
The 2050 comp plan, there's also some question about population density and whether or not the plan ultimately is going to recommend policy changes that could increase density. Density makes public transit much more sustainable and approachable for federal grants. So that's another place where I don't know what the final report's going to say, but if it supports policy measures that would promulgate higher density, mixed use development. That is another thing that would help a future FTA application.
Thank you. Any other questions at this time? Stephanie, thank you very much for that presentation. If you just keep us updated on any developments, or good, bad, or indifferent, we would love to hear it. Okay. All right, I
I
think.
think the second part of ours, Joe was going to, because I think a question that one of you had was, what is the investment? What is the need and what is the investment on the traditional transportation side of infrastructure that would support transit, but some more support however it is you get from point A to point B, and not knowing exactly where you would want to be with that and what you need to know. We have a high level presentation on some of those factoids as well. So
Okay.
Joe Kalasa, if you can.
All right, let me share my screen and get us started. All right, can everyone see a presentation slide? Not sure that it went. Let me try that again.
Don't see it. Now we do.
Now you do. All right, fantastic.
Or
Now I
it's
can't
coming.
see anybody else. That's
There.
all right. Hold on one second. There we go. All right. So I wanted to give a high level presentation that kind of describes how we prioritize and look at all the investments that we need to make for transportation infrastructure in St. Louis County. So we have 4 key areas. These are not actually fiscally equal in the pie chart, but this makes it easy to represent visually. So pavement maintenance, maintain our roads in fair, better conditions is one of our priorities. We've got our Vision Zero plan. That's a commitment to reduce serious and fatal accidents by 50/50 by the year 2050. We have our ADA transition plan for upgrade of pedestrian facilities for ADA compliance. And we have our action plan for walking and biking, which is our blueprint for sidewalk and trail improvements, essentially. So let me start with pavement maintenance, and it's a priority because number one, from a transit perspective, the roads are integral to Metro bus operations. Without the infrastructure of good roads, the Metro buses simply don't work. So second is supports economic activity to have roads in decent condition, which again is important for that densification that's necessary for future FTA grants and other such things. Safety, smooth roads without potholes, prevent crashes. That's something that's important. And then for pavement life, spending money on pavement maintenance proactively is a lot less expensive than doing it reactively. Unfortunately, we have been in a situation over the last decade that we're becoming much more reactive than proactive, and ultimately it does make the system much more expensive to maintain. And why did I start with pavement maintenance? Because it's really, really important to our constituents. We have 65% of our, by survey of in our 2050 comp plan that say our roads are simply unacceptable. They are very unhappy. They expect good roads. Now, the problem is that we do not collect anywhere near enough funding to maintain our roads in fair condition. For example, everyone says, I pay a ton in property tax. Hear it all the time. Very, very little goes to the fund for roads. For example, your average, $300,000 subdivision house, they're going to be paying property taxes for over 100 years before we can replace the half a road and little piece of sidewalk in front of their house. And that's not counting all of the work that we have to do to maintain the arterials and collectors, all the major roads. So yeah, they're generally speaking, the public isn't terribly happy with road condition. We have 1,418 center lane miles of pavement. 208 miles of that is in bad condition right now. 566 miles is in marginal condition, headed towards poor. The good news is we do have 644 miles of pavement that is in good condition. So that's good for us. one of the things that a lot of people don't understand about our system is that 66% of our system is subdivision streets. So in all of those, especially those streets, they were built by developers. The government didn't build those roads, but the government is expected to maintain and replace those roads. We've gotten to the point in the life of subdivisions that many of those roads need to be replaced, or at the very least have major work done to them. Right now we have 87 miles of road that's in poor condition. Fortunately, County Council gave us $40 million of NFL funds that we're going to be able to address 30 miles of those subdivision roads here in the next couple years. That leaves a deficit of $71 million to get to the rest of the roads that are in bad shape. And keep in mind, the roads that are in marginal shape are headed towards bad, and we haven't accounted for how we're going to maintain those. Of our major roads, the arterial roads, your Brentwood, your Clayton, your Hanley, we have 99, almost 100 miles of poor pavement of those major roads right now. Fortunately, we do have a little over 55 miles of that programmed. We've done that through leveraging a lot of federal grant money. The downside is that we still have over $200 million worth of need that we need to find funding for. And again, we're only talking about the roads that most people would already consider failed. We have a lot of work waiting in the wings. And then lastly, our collector roads, that's your kind of intermediate road between your subdivision and your majors. We have 21 miles of poor pavement, nothing programmed currently, and there's another $40 million of deficit.
Okay, well, I'm even still going on.
All right. So next, let me talk on a positive note. Vision Zero. So the Useless Gateway put together the Gateway to Safer Roadways Regional Vision Zero plan, which is absolutely fantastic. It identifies through crash statistics where our serious and fatal accidents are happening across the county. So that helps us to prioritize investment. So when we know we have a road maintenance project, we're looking at opportunities to reduce those serious and fatal crashes and improve safety across the board. And those safety improvements aren't always high dollar. That's one of the reasons we're looking at them with every project. It could be simple as striping change or changing signal timing, or there's low-hanging fruit to a lot of those. So that is a commitment by St. Louis County that we're incorporating that into all of our projects, at least reviewing the data to see if there's something we can do to effectuate change in a positive way. Next, our ADA transition plan. So ADA transition plan, ADA improvements, that is a mandate by the federal government to bring facilities up to compliance. Right now, we estimate we have somewhere between $270 and $405 million worth of work that needs to be done. And this is just for sidewalks that already exist. This isn't filling the sidewalk gaps that are out there. It's essential for a walkable community, but it also is a huge unfunded mandate. We will one day get to address all of that, but we do not have a horizon to know when that is. In our plan, it's decades, and that has everything to do with the insufficient funding that is provided for road maintenance in St. Louis County. Lastly, we have the action plan for walking and biking. Like I said, this is our blueprint for developing a safe, connected, and equitable transportation system. And it includes a lot of different aspects. We've got trails, physically separated bike lanes, visually separated bike lanes, mixed traffic bikeways, sidewalks. It includes a lot of different types of infrastructure, but all with the same goal to make walking and biking an accessible means of transit in the county. The plan prioritizes investment so that we have areas that are, if you go look at the plan, you'll see that there's high impact, medium impact, and low impact facilities mentioned on the plan. And I should note too that the plan does incorporate the bike and trail plans of all the other communities around us. So we looked at the municipal plans. We looked at GRG. We worked with MoDOT so that we looked at, you know, how do we create networks, not just worry about, oh, well, this is a county road. We're not worried about it once you leave the county road. So that weighed into how we did that prioritization process. But at the end of the day, we are looking at primarily the high impact facilities. That's all that we're programming. If it's medium or low impact, we will help pursue those if there's a municipality or other group that wants to fund those. However, the only thing that's being programmed primarily is high impact unless we can essentially get it for better than free with a grant. Because there are projects where, you know, we can actually get our roadway resurfaced, and by including some of these other facilities, we can secure grants which make the bike facility or sidewalk or whatever free. So those are the exceptions to the rule. But right now, you know, there's $300 to $450 million of facilities identified. So a rather large program that we'd love to see funding for, but it is very limited currently. But that's not to say we're not doing great things. We absolutely are. Two in recent history, we just completed Baxter Road, Clayton to Manchester. It's an off-street bike facility. Shared use path is another name for that. And that was from Holloway to Manchester. So that was a great improvement just completed. Airport Road from Hamley to Florissant, we just got done with the resurfacing, and with that resurfacing, we included a road diet which incorporated bike lanes, with the intent to continue that project into Ferguson through the intersection with along Chambers, through the intersection with Elizabeth, and eventually to the middle school. So that's a great project there. We have a number of other off-street bike facilities in the work: Hawkins Road, Dorset Road, Jennings Station Road. We've got on Old Halls Ferry, we have buffered bike lanes with bulb outs. The bulb outs are protrusions of the curb line that help to slow traffic by effectively making the roadway appear to be narrower. We have buffered bike lanes proposed on Woods Mill, under design currently. Chambers Road, we've got an off-street bike facility. That's another one of those shared use paths. And the Castle Point subdivision will be one of our first major forays into traffic calming. For anyone who doesn't know, the Castle Point subdivision is a gridded subdivision. So the streets are very long, but everything's very straight. We have clocked people doing north of 70 miles an hour in this subdivision. They have a crash pattern that's worse than most of our major arterials. So that is an exciting project that we're getting off the ground this year, and hopefully it should be completed by the end of this year. But we're building speed humps, installing chicanes and chokers, and traffic circles. So a chicane forces you to kind of weave around some islands. A choker narrows the roadway so that, again, you just barely have room for two cars to get by each other, and we're doing that with medians. And then there's one location where we have a small traffic circle, which is in the middle of the intersection, is a small piece of concrete, you know, round circle. I say small, we're talking reasonably large diameter. But that forces cars, instead of being able to fly straight through, they have to go around this obstruction. So we're hoping between all of those, we see significant reductions in speed and an increase in safety for that intersection, or for that subdivision. We have our Paul Avenue project, which we are partnered with GRG to build a portion of the Maylene Greenway that follows the road right away. We have bike lanes being installed on Olive Boulevard. On Ferguson Avenue, this is another GRG partnership for installing an off-street bike facility, so a shared use path separated from traffic. We have our West Florissant Great Streets project, which is a fantastic project, which is going to include a host of improvements. Off-street bike facility, the shared use path, lots of traffic calming, lots of visual enhancement. It's going to be a dramatic transformation to that region. We have our Rivas Barracks and Green Park Road project, which is going to construct a shared use path and sidewalk for the project's length. We're going to be constructing a new connection to Grants Trail, rebuilding signals, and a failing bridge. And then we have our Operation Smart Streets, which is a signal enhancement that's going to be rolled out countywide over the next 5 to 6 years. And what this involves is essentially installing special equipment at each signal that's going to allow for connected car. So the equipment will be able to talk back and forth to vehicles as new technology is installed in vehicles for manufacturers. It's going to allow for a unified emergency vehicle preemption system, so that if the fire district, they don't have to worry about just the signals they need to drive through. If they need to assist in a neighboring community, if they're set up in the system, it's going to work on every county system that they need to preempt the signal. They need it to turn green. It's going to turn green for them. Same with police. They're going to be able to use the system as well, and ambulances. And then it's going to have the option of bus priority. Again, countywide, all signals. We'll be watching for those buses. And if by a real-time adjustment of signal timing, it can let that bus get a green instead of stopping at a light, it's going to let the bus through. And that's going to really help with ridership and just the perception of public transit throughout the county when the person on the bus isn't stopping at every signal. They're in theory, there should never be a situation where you stop at every signal on a major corridor if you're on that bus. Maybe you'll get one, but by the time you get going again, you're going to get into that priority queue and you're going to start flowing. Two other notable projects that we're coordinating with GRG that we received grants for is the Schutz Road, Lindbergh to Gamdy, and Vernon Avenue. Both of those we're partnering with GRG to extend the Centennial Greenway and provide some meaningful connections there. And we're in heavy coordination with GRG on those projects. And lastly, I just want to mention that almost every one of our projects includes ADA compliant curb ramp reconstruction, sidewalk repair, and bus pad installations, and or bus pad ADA improvements. So there's a lot of work that's very positive on multimodal and even transit in our program. So I want to talk a little bit more in detail about our major transformative projects. The two that I mentioned were the West Florissant and Rivas Barracks projects. So West Florissant, this is a project I want to do everywhere in St. Louis County. It's that corridor right now is it has the worst crash history of anywhere in the county, specifically at Chambers and West Florissant. Many fatalities and serious injuries. So the improvements that we're able to get with a RAISE grant through the federal government are going to allow us to completely transform that corridor, which is currently a sea of pavement, no defined entrances to businesses. It's a free-for-all of traffic. And plenty of speeding issues to boot. Our project is going to install a lot of what we call access management, which means we're going to install a lot of center medians, which don't necessarily allow you to turn left into every business on the corridor. And that's going to help prevent a lot of even possibilities of crash types. We've done it very systematically, very intelligently through the corridor. We've worked with property owners, and we're just finishing out the right-of-way process right now. That's going to also include some pretty significant Metro bus enhancements, where we're going to get some bus shelters out there that don't currently exist, as well as have multiple pedestrian signalized crossings, which don't currently exist. We're going to have, like that, a shared use path on the east side of the road and a full sidewalk on the west side of the road for the length of the corridor. And in addition, we're going to rehabilitate pavement. And lanes are going to get narrower too to help encourage people to drive a little slower. Now, the reason we can't do projects like this everywhere, for this 1.5 mile stretch of road, we're going to be north of $32 million at the end of the day. It's about 4 times the cost of just simple maintenance. Well, somewhere between 4 and 10 times the cost, depending on the road. So it's a significant investment. And as you saw me roll through the other needs, it's hopefully it's clear that we can't make that kind of investment everywhere, not without significant additional funding coming in, and the federal government does not have enough programs to cover our needs by any stretch of the imagination. So the other big project is Rivas Barracks. That project started out, we have a bridge that's at end of life. So we looked at that project and said, okay, what else can we do here? We have Grants Trail was nearby and running through the area, and we had you know, a community that mobility was important. So we looked at what the opportunities were, since that bridge, you know, is going to have a 50+ year lifespan. Most of them get closer to 100. We wanted to make sure we're building the right structure for long-term improvements to the area. And what we're going to be able to do with that project is install a shared use path along the north side of Rivas Barracks, a connection signal, traffic signal connected connection to Grants Trail, and then a sidewalk on the south side of the road that goes the entire length of the corridor. So that was going to be a transformative project as well, and rebuild the signals for modern pedestrian improvements. We have worked with TrailNet to make sure that Grants Trail, the improvements there are appropriate, and we're going to have things incorporated such as no right turn on red where the trail is crossing the road, and center line hardening, which will help slow down people making left turns onto Green Park Road. Again, why don't we do this kind of thing everywhere? Is cost. For that 0.7 miles of road, we're looking at $14 million plus of investment. Now, are these important? Absolutely. It saves lives. It provides better mobility. It provides better quality of life. It attracts more businesses to the area. We want to do these kind of projects. We want to spur this kind of investment. But at the end of the day, the funding has to come in for us to be able to build them. We believe that the taxpayer sees a significant return on their investment when they do provide the funding. But unless that funding is provided, we can't do the big projects. So what's left to accomplish? We have another 121 miles of bad pavement, $300+ million that we need to worry about. We have $300+ million worth of action plan improvements we want to complete. We have $270 million plus of unprogrammed ADA improvements. Smart Streets is now programmed, so that one's well, it's not approved yet, but that isn't in my 5-year capital investment plan that I've proposed to council. I'm cautiously optimistic we're going to get that one. Vision Zero is too nebulous to quantify. We look at it with every project. There'll be places where it's relatively inexpensive. There will be other places that is prohibitively expensive. And then we have hundreds of traffic signals which are near their end of life, which I do not have programmed for replacement. And then we have 566 miles of pavement that's in fair condition and degrading every day that we're going to have to find a plan to address as we move forward. It sounds a little doom and gloom, and the takeaway here though is that we are not being myopic about our investments. We are not saying, well, because we can't address the pavement that we're ignoring everything else. We are programming to try to accomplish those 4 key priorities as best we can with the funding that we're allotted. But it isn't what we need to accomplish the mission the way we would like to accomplish it. So we do have some resources online that you can refer to if you want to see some of these things in more depth. We have a web page called Planning for the Future, and on that page we have our actual action plan document. The action plan for walking and biking also includes an interactive map, so that you can scroll around and you can see not only our plan but the plans of the other agencies that were in place at the time we put the plan together. We have our needs lists, pavement needs, as well as a number of other kinds of needs that can be found under Planning for the Future. You can see a lot of individual project information on our page. Under there, we have web pages for projects that are under design, active construction, and recently completed construction. Those again are all interactive maps, so you can scroll around, zoom around, you can see what's going on and what we're planning to do. And then I encourage you to take a look at East West Gateway's Gateway to Safer Roadways document. That's the Regional Vision Zero plan. And that's going to be our guide to prioritizing safety improvements throughout the county as we move forward. That was just adopted earlier this year, and it was absolutely a tremendous effort by East West Gateway, and I commend them on publishing that. We were very excited to adopt that. One thing I'd like to mention too is that we are in the process of putting together a grant application to update our action plan for walking and biking to align those priorities with the Gateway to Safer Roadways. The plan is about 5 years old now, so we feel it's time to take a look at those biking and walking enhancements and align those with East West Gateway's Regional Vision Zero plan to make sure that we're prioritizing pedestrian improvement appropriately to accomplish multiple goals at the same time where we can. So that is what I had for you. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I know that was a very, very high level presentation.
Very detailed too, Joe. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Yeah. Any questions for Joe? This is.
I do have one question. Are there specific areas of the county which suffer disproportionately in terms of poor pavement, or is it spread all throughout the county fairly evenly?
So we approach pavement maintenance based on pavement condition. And what that means is that there are times where we will have I'm going to say a disproportionate number of projects that are focused on North County or South County or West County because we're addressing pavement as the condition drops. So in any given year, it may not be equally distributed, but that's because the bad pavement isn't equally distributed. Another interesting thing to note about that is not every council district or region has the same amount of pavement that's maintained by the county. For example, South County has it's almost 10 times the amount of subdivision pavement as District 3. It is just really a large swing in how much pavement the county is responsible for in any given area. North County has the incorporated areas. The county is only responsible for the arterial roads. But like South County has a lot more unincorporated areas. So that means that we are responsible for the subdivision roads that North County would be handled by the municipality. West County in general is newer. So they're not suffering the same issues that North, Mid, and South County are suffering when it comes to pavement condition. And it's not a function of disproportionate investment based on anything other than age of the actual infrastructure. So I know that was a long answer to basically say it depends on how you look at it.
Yeah.
It would be really great to see in your 4 priorities how you tie them in more to transit. So if you're doing a roadway project, I would advocate that we maybe look at how we could include better shelters in that roadway project. And I know you're talking about budget issues, but if we're not going to look at big transit investment, we should look at smaller transit investment to improve the amenities for riders in those Metro bus corridors that are already in the county. And I didn't see very much of that. I saw the action plan for biking and walking. It might be really great to see an action plan for transit as well.
So the action plan for transit would be something that has to be led by Metro. Metro, we would be happy to partner with Metro for the installation of bus shelters with our projects. But St. Louis County does not install or maintain bus shelters as part of our mission. But we're more than happy to partner if Metro would be interested in doing so. And we could certainly make those arrangements happen.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments for Joe? Joe, can you give us let's say an update, maybe quarterly, on these reports, on these projects? I think
Well-
Mr. Neely had a very good point in terms of priority or areas of priority. And I guess each one of us has our own priority because of the areas that we live in. But I think a lot of what you said had to do with South County. Maybe their subdivisions are maintained by the county, where in North County, a lot of it is maintained by the municipalities, if I understood you correctly.
In overall pavement area, yes. You did understand that correctly, but a quarterly report isn't actually going to serve you. We create a 5-year plan for our projects, a 5-year capital budget, and that's on an annual basis. And I'd be more than happy to provide you with a copy of the annual budget that was approved, or the annual program that was approved last year, and the annual program that we have submitted to council this year. But that's more of an annual report. Things don't change that quickly in our world to where quarterly would make any sense.
Okay. Yeah, we would appreciate that. Also, is there possible that there's a hard copy of the report that you gave today that you can also submit to the council members, commission members?
Absolutely. Would digital be okay?
Uh, yes.
Okay.
Any means.
I can certainly email it as soon as we got off this call. That is no problem at all.
Joe, can you send that to me, please? Thank you. This is Izzy.
Izzy, yes, I will
I'll send
forward
you
it to you as soon as we're off this call.
Thank you.
And Stephanie, the same, if you can do the same. It's a lot of information that you put out there. A lot of it to digest, and basically to see what we can put our arms around, so we have more of an impact on maybe some of the areas that you are talking about. And I think that would be helpful for us and for the county. So thank you very much. I appreciate your input, and look forward to receiving and looking at those reports. Thank you again.
You're very welcome.
Okay. I guess we at the St. Louis County Police Department, and I think there should be a link to their current report, so we can just look at that. If there's any questions, we can bring them to our next meeting. Or does anyone have a question for the county police at this time?
I'm sorry, I don't have a question for the police. I've been sitting with and trying to formulate the question that I have regarding all of the wonderful, comprehensive, and dense information we've had in the prior 2 reports, and what I feel like I'm hearing from other commissioners. The question came up a couple of times around equity, right? And how the decisions we are making, the disproportionate, or how we can level the impact that it's having on communities that have less access to transportation. And I understand that what we have in infrastructure now, so measuring based on the amount of pavement in a community, you don't, it's just purely based on the amount of pavement. However, I would like for us to grapple with how we make decisions to ensure that those who are most disproportionately impacted are able to have the more attention in creating more access, because how we got to where we are in terms of our institutions, like, there is an equity question in that. So anyway, I'm not formulating the question well, but I think there's something for us to sit with, so that we're not just doing it based on what exists now without taking into consideration that there is still some inequity that's embedded into the way our infrastructure exists today. And so I'm just putting that as a placeholder for us to consider. Is there a way for us, as we're making decisions regarding public transportation, to ensure, like, how are we measuring to ensure the decisions that we make are really impacting those who have the greatest need?
So I can help with that before we even get too far. most of the grants we run after have that as an embedded scoring component. So that's something that is in many cases part of the process of obtaining funding. Is you know, looking at Justice 40 areas and looking at it. One of the things that scores a project better for a lot of the grants we apply for is this route on a bus route. So a lot of those considerations are baked into the grant formulas. So not that it's a perfect or panacea, but hopefully makes you feel a little bit more comfortable that it's not something we've ignored and said only this matters. Those things are considered in those funding streams.
Thank you.
Also, in the action plan for biking and walking, that equity component was part of the criteria that classified things as high impact, medium impact, low impact. A lot of those were considerations in that scoring.
Yeah, and lastly, the regional Vision Zero plan is largely showing that our issues are North County in disadvantaged areas. So the data comes out and says this is where you need to focus your investment. So those are all things we are very conscious of, and all the data and the money points to making investments where they're going to have the most impact.
Thank you for that.
Right, I think I think we need to work on that, because I think what you're getting at is basically what everybody, at least I'm gonna say the majority of us, I'm not speaking for everybody, is concerned about the equity, and how can we as a commission, what can we do as a commission to bring to light some of these issues? I think we can work on that. Okay? Thank you. Okay. Bi-State. Mr. Stewart.
Okay, I guess I'll start for Bi-State. Good afternoon, everybody. Great reports, Stephanie and Joe. And we'd be very happy to work with you on those bus shelters so we can get that going. Because that's very important to us as well. And of course, to our customers, our riders. So I'm going to give an update on Metro operations, and Mr. Roach and I gave a report to the St. Louis County Council at their last meeting. We give a quarterly report there on bus operations, on Metro operations, and I'm going to share the highlights of that report. The first thing I'd like to talk about is our recruitment update. I am meeting my budget in terms of Metro bus operators. We currently have over 645 operators out of a budget of 650, and which means that we can make some changes in the kind of service that we've been offering over the past year or so. I'm also, I've met my budget in terms of call route operators. We need 180 call route operators to operate the system. I currently have 186, which is a wonderful thing, wonderful thing. Still need mechanics. We're still short about 50 mechanics, whether they be electricians or electromechanics or vehicle mechanics or maintenance mechanics. We're still looking for those, and we're still offering a $5,000 sign-on bonus for mechanics. So as I ask you every meeting, please send me mechanics if you know where I can find them. So we would be very happy to add to our mechanics as we go forward. But what our improvements in the number of bus operators and call route operators has meant is that we have been able to improve our service. As you know, we do a service change every quarter. We've actually done 5 this year, starting in January, because as we add additional staff members, employees, team members, we use those as immediately to enhance the service that we're providing. So we had our most recent service change on December 2nd. We preceded that with 8 open house meetings in the community, making the community aware of the changes we were making, getting their input about it, their feedback, tweaking it here and there, and then we came out with a service change actually last Monday. This service change involves 25 routes in Missouri and Illinois. Again, basically what we're doing is we're increasing frequencies and we're becoming more reliable in terms of the service that we're providing. We've extended some service. We expanded service to Mercy South in Fenton, which we had not been servicing for over a year, almost 2 years. But this increased frequency, we hope, will be very satisfying to our customers. We have streamlined our routes, so we have more single seat routes now, less requirements for people to transfer from one bus or from bus to Metrolink service connecting to the North County Transit Center, the Riverview Transit Center, and downtown. So we're very happy that we have been able to increase our service, make our service more reliable, more frequent, and this is a result of our success in our recruiting and retaining team members. We have some updates to our fare system. I think Mr. Curran, Tom Curran, will talk about that. Also to our secure platform plan, and Missy Webb, I think, will talk about that coming up. I'd like to give you an additional update on Call-A-Ride. And of course, we've been measuring Call-A-Ride by the number of trips that we've been able to increase over the past year to 14 months, and also based on the number of denials that we've been able to decrease over that period of time. Bottom line, we are now providing over 8,000 rides per week on Call-A-Ride, up from 5,000 about 14 months ago. And our denial rate, which at one point in time, about 14 months ago, was almost 50%, 46%. Our denial rate for Call-A-Ride has been 0 for the last month and a half, 0. So I think that is a good indicator of the improvements in the service that we have been making with Call-A-Ride. The other thing that issued in Call-A-Ride was our phone status. Again, we replaced our phone provider. We are getting much more consistent in customers being able to call in and get in the queue. Our waiting times are diminishing. We have texting options now for people to check on their rides. We have implemented a new software system called Spare that will give us much more efficiency and the customers much more service. You know, one of the things that we're battling right now, it's not a battle, it's actually a good thing. We're getting better. We're getting better. Our customers are not quite trusting us yet. So they are still, everybody's still trying to call in at 7:30. But I think as people learn that you don't have to call at 7:30, you can call at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, or even maybe the next day. And they're finding that we have service available and we are meeting their requirements for that service. Dispatching software I talked about, the new Spare system. We are implementing, we promised implementation of the new system by the end of the year. We actually launched the system last week in 3 Call-A-Ride vans. So we're rapidly getting to the point where this service will be made available to everyone. One of the big things this is going to do for us, it's going to allow us more flexibility. It's going to make us more nimble. If somebody cancels a ride during the middle of the day, we're going to be able to better be able to redirect our vans to pick up somebody else so that we're always going to be as efficient and effective as possible. Some of the things that Spare offers, better trip routing, that continuous optimization. Every time something changes, we change accordingly and give service to someone else. Text, phone, and email notifications, web and app-based scheduling options, new ways to submit eligibility applications. Of course, our ADA riders must be certified. They submit applications. We're going to make that process even easier. We announced our Accessibility Advisory Committee, and that committee met on November 7th for the first time. This is our 15-member committee of people from all aspects of the community, basically working with us to continue to make our service better. They're getting their bylaws together and that type of thing. Their next meeting is on January 17th. So those are the key things that we reported to the county council, well received, and we continue to make efforts to improve our service. We appreciate the support that we've been given from St. Louis County. We're working on our next budget. I'll kind of jump into the finance report because Tammy Fulbright, our CFO, is not with us this afternoon, but suffice it to say we're working on our budget for next year, and we again are incorporating things in that budget to make us a very much better, efficient, effective, quality service providing company. So that concludes my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions for Mr. Stewart?
I have one.
Okay.
Chuck, have you seen any increase in your ridership given the improvements you've made?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that question. Mr. Roach did report to the county council. You know, in the last few years after COVID, we were seeing basically 6% increases every year. For this current year, our fiscal year started July 1. We're up about 14% year over year at this point so far this year. So I think that's a couple of things. I think people are getting out, they're moving around more. Some of the people are going back to work, you know, in the office environment. But also I think it's because we're putting more service on the street. We could only, we only had a certain capacity because of our restrictions in terms of employees and that type of thing. As we improve that situation, our ridership is improving also.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stewart. Okay. I think Tom and Kern with the fare update, fare system.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The fare collection program is continuing to make good progress. As of last weekend, we have completed our installation of our new validators on all of our Metrobus fleet. So early in 2025, the validators will be activated on Metrobus for validating e-tickets or mobile tickets. They can be purchased from both the Transit app, which you can do today, and also from our very own Ride On app, which will be customized for Metro. The component pieces of the validators for Metrolink are already on site, and they will be installed next year as the Secure Platforms project completes its construction of security gates and fencing at all of our Metrolink stations. The validators for Metrolink will unlock the gates at our Metrolink stations in the future. When the project is complete, the new validators will read QR code tickets, passes, and smart cards. And at a future date, it will also be possible for the new validators to read credit cards directly through a tap and pay system, although we don't have a time frame set up for that yet. And the work is continuing to develop on our 2 new ticket vending machines for Metrolink. The prototype TVM is being fabricated by a company called Fabcon. They're out in Orange County, California. I was very excited to see the actual frame up of the first TVMs being produced and recently tested for water intrusion. So they're to the point where they are already starting some of the testing for the new machines. And Indra, the company that produced our existing TVMs, is also the designer of the new machines, and those TVMs will be installed in late 2025. So I know we're over time. If anybody has any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Right,
Excuse
thank you.
me. Okay, secure platform.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to try to go quickly. So our secure platform plan is moving forward as projected. So I'm really excited to announce, though, that our first 2 Missouri stops are about to come to fruition and go live. That will be before Christmas. We are aiming for December the 20th, and those 2 stops that will be going live first will be Cortex and Delmar. So very exciting news. We're still aiming for the end of the year for the other remainder 5 stops in package number 2. Package number 3, while we're moving forward on package number 2, getting that completed, package number 3 is finally out of design phase, and we are now in the process of bidding package number 3 in its entirety. That's actually about all I have for the secure platform plan. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Yeah, I have one, it might come up. On the gate system. I know you pay your fare and then the gate will automatically open for that particular passenger. What about a ADA passenger? Is there a gate for a wheelchair type, or how does that work for an ADA individual?
Absolutely. Until the fare component is up to fruition, there will be any of our transit community members will be met by a security team member when the fare is validated and shown to be correct. Then they'll be proxy carded into either of the 2 gates that we have at the platforms. There's a roto style gate, and then there is also a ADA swing gate. So those gates are obviously viable gates for anyone to use that might need them, that might have ADA issues or would like those for ADA reasons. However, those are also there for individuals that maybe you have a bike, you have groceries. I know that I've seen a lot of parents with their children in tow that'll use those swing gates that are active currently.
Is there a way to prevent multiple people going through the gate?
Yes, currently right now having our transit security team members there will prevent that, but also there are sensors and detections on the gates that shut and close with an individual so that it keeps from what we call piggybacking occurring.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you for that information. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving along. At this time, we're gonna have marketing. Anyone from marketing?
No, marketing's not present on the call today.
Okay, well, they can pick up any major items or major updates at the next
I
meeting.
can jump in really quick and just let you know that we have a lot of Community Connect events that are coming up in February. So there'll be 4 events. I don't have the locations, I apologize, but I know that marketing would love for you all to know that.
When they come up, could you make sure that we have the dates and locations?
I'll send those to Izzy as soon as we get off the meeting.
Okay, then, thank you. At this time, we will have a presentation from Kimberly, one of our own, on the Citizens for Modern Transportation. Kim?
Thanks, Ed. And I know we're really long on time. So Izzy graciously sent out to all the commission members the CMT annual report as well as the transit transformation booklet. So we're the Regional Transit Advocacy Organization. We represent more than 22,000 constituents. So we partner with Metro, but we also advocate. We push, we pull, we work with them in all sorts of ways, but we also do legislative work. We advocate for increased investment on the state level for public transit. We do programming, we do research. We just released the economic impact study of transit so we can quantify the benefits of transit in the state of Missouri, as well as the Green Line that we touched on earlier today. We work with elected officials and stakeholders on transit-related issues. We do transit transformation programming, which is where we're actually changing a stop or station into transforming them into more a part of the fabric of the community. I know you've heard me ask about bus shelters on numerous occasions on the commission meetings. We do a lot of different education opportunities. In January, we have a candid conversation with commuters set for January 10th to talk about the new fare machines on the buses, as well as Call-A-Ride and other things. That is a Zoom webinar. You're more than welcome to join us. And we're doing a state of transit in the region on January 14th. That is also a webinar. All that information is available on our website at cmt-stl.org. If there's any questions, otherwise you have all of our documents, and I'm happy to answer questions at any time. I don't want to keep you any longer.
Okay. I would encourage everyone to read the report. It's very informative. Like Kim said, it gives you basically the information of all the items that they do in her organization. Thank you very much, Kim.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're going to have a presentation from Robin Walden. Robin?
Hi, it's Robin Wallen, and yes, I'm with the Commission on Disabilities. I'm also, as I said, a member of the St. Louis Metropolitan Alliance for Reliable Transit. And one of the reasons I came here to speak to you all today is about the lack of transportation for the elderly and disabled in the county. A couple of things have come to mind, and I had something I was going to read to you, but I'm going to try to cut this as short as I can because I know we're late on time, but there's some things that I think you should be aware of. First of all, I will commend Metro has improved their service a lot, and it's still working on it, but there are still some major voids. One of the things that happens in the county is that our infrastructure is a little bit different. So the county is full of subdivisions. What that means is that a lot of elderly and disabled people live deep within a subdivision. That can become a problem for a couple of reasons. One, because a lot of subdivisions do lack sidewalks. Two, because a lot of people who have disabilities or who are elderly may not be able to walk long distances. So that limits the amount of transit that they can get. If you're close to a major road like Olive, Page, Manchester, you have access to a bus. If you're deep in a subdivision, that can be a whole different situation. Now, yes, you can get paratransit within 3/4 of a mile of a fixed route bus. However, paratransit, the way it works, you do have to call in advance. Unfortunately, as we all know, life doesn't always happen in advance. A lot of times there are things that come up that you have to go right away. For example, if you become ill and you need to go to a doctor, now you have no way to get there because you can't just call for paratransit that day and get a ride. You can call taxis or Uber or Lyft, but that poses another problem. Right now in St. Louis, there's only one taxi company that has WAVE vehicles, which are wheelchair accessible vehicles. They did originally have 4. I believe they only have 2 at this time, and that is Metro West Taxi. So that is one option. But the other options typically are companies that mainly do medical transport. There are some that do some on-demand transport, but those run really high. Two of them I can think of is Zip Care and also Summit Transportation. But to go from somewhere in the county, say, to an appointment in the city can cost well over $100 one way. We're talking about a population of people that are usually on fixed incomes. So that becomes a problem. None of the rideshare companies in St. Louis offer wave or wheelchair accessible vehicles. There is also a problem with a lot of rideshare companies in service animal denials, in which drivers may pull up, and if they know that someone has a service animal, they will cancel the ride. I've experienced this myself with friends of mine several times. We have also had, because I am visually impaired, and we always text our drivers to say, I'm visually impaired, please, or I'm blind, please let me know when you arrive. And we've had drivers actually either drive away from us or drive away so that the ride is canceled, or what they will do is they will go and park somewhere out of the way and wait to see if we will cancel. So that becomes a problem as well. So right now, in the county, we really don't have any kind of on-demand transportation. Now, some cities have done a couple of different things about this. One of them is microtransit and what they call deviated microtransit. Because microtransit doesn't have the same rules as ADA paratransit, it's a lot more flexible. And deviated microtransit is basically where if you have a disability, you can call in and say, I need you to pick me up here and drop me off here. And that works for some people. There's some controversy with that because there was an article that came out in the Kansas City Star, I think, over the past couple of days, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, basically saying that microtransit is more expensive than regular transit, which on the one hand, it can be. However, microtransit overall is less expensive than paratransit per trip. So there's kind of a give and take with all of that. One of the other things I want to comment on from listening today, and I appreciate all the plans going forward and all the great things for South County, the sidewalk upgrades and the bike paths and all of that. But this is all stuff in the future. And right now we have a lot of county residents that are basically stuck and can't get to the places that they need to do. And that becomes a major problem. The other thing that I've noticed is that there's a focus on areas that are lower income. Here's the thing that I don't think people realize is that disability and aging cross all socioeconomic boundaries. So while West County and South County may be more affluent, you still have a vast majority of people who are actually disabled and elderly who cannot get to the places that they want to go. A lot of times these people don't have family members and don't have affordable transportation to get them where they need to go. Now, there are monies available to work on solving this problem, and I know that you can use 5307 grants, 5310 grants, 5339 grants to try to work on some on-demand paratransit type programs. And there was a letter, I believe it was September 24th, or I'm sorry, September 14th of 2023 that came out from, I believe her name was Nuria Fernandez, about how on-demand paratransit is actually more equitable and comparable than our traditional form of paratransit. And those of us who are disabled are very frustrated because with the lack of accessible taxi companies and also the lack of taxis in general, because as you know, most of the taxi companies are much smaller now because of the advent of ride shares, the lack of accessible ride shares and the lack of accessible transit, especially in subdivisions and out in the unincorporated county areas, it's a major problem. There are some communities in the county that have their own bus systems that have, I think Brentwood has something called the Magic Bus where you can call and get a ride on certain days, things like that. But unincorporated county honestly doesn't have anything that solves that problem. So I wanted to make people aware of just how big of a problem this is and that we need a solution now as opposed to later. It's great to look to the future. It's great to look to 2050. It's great to look to 2030. But there are a lot of people who are suffering now that need to get to places now that are not able to do so. So that's what I really wanted to share with you all today. So any questions?
Robin, the letter that you were going to read, could you get a copy of that to Izzy
I certainly can.
so she can distribute it to the rest of the commission and to Bi-State?
I absolutely can.
Okay. Are there any questions for Robin or comments for Robin? Very good. Thank you very much, Robin.
You're welcome.
Okay. It was a long one, but I think we had some very good presentations. They gave us a lot of information and some new directions. I mean, we was running by the seat of our pants for a while. Now we got some directions, and I really appreciate the comments. I appreciate the presentations. Thank you. I think this was a very informative meeting. At this time, I would like to announce that the next meeting will be January the 13th, 2025. This past year has gone by so quick. And the older you get, the quicker they go, to me. So thank you very much for your presentation tonight and for your participation tonight. And hearing no other comments, I would like to have a motion for adjournment.
So moved, McKelvey.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved properly second. Any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Hear no opposed? Meeting's adjourned at 5:42 p.m. Thank you.